I don't remember what I preached on that text that day. I remember my knees were shaking. And I remember that the only lie I remember telling to any professor in seminary for 3 years was the one I told about that. Because we were videotaped, and we were supposed to go to the library, and these were the days of VCRs, which those of you under 30 don't even remember, but you had to stick the videotape in and watch yourself and fill out a form. And I hate looking at pictures of myself. Videos are worse. I filled that form out and turned it in without ever looking at the video. I'm not going to preach on John 9. It's a rich text. There's a lot that can be said about it. But Psalm 23 is such a beautiful psalm that I couldn't help but want to preach about that today. And when I got here this morning and saw that sheep looking at me, I figured I'd probably make the right decision. So it was December 26th, 1995. Just hours after touching down at Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, I found myself amidst a sea of shops in the city market. It was a swirl of colors and motion and sights and sounds and smells. And I was supposed to look for something symbolic to buy that I could bring back to the church that had sent me on this trip. Something that would symbolize their new connection in Kenya that I was there to help develop. What I learned quickly that day was that if I showed the slightest interest in any item in any stall, it would result in a full court press from that shopkeeper and the appearance of other merchants all around him pressing in on me, insisting they had a much better version of whatever it was I was looking at if I would just come down the aisle to their stall instead. And they would sell it to me for a cheaper price. It was hot, and I think the heat of that afternoon sun, combined with my introvert's dislike of haggling and of people getting in my personal space, only added to that sense of absolute panic and confusion that I had. My nerves were jangled. But I tried to keep cool and not look like I wanted to buy anything at all until I saw it. It was this rectangular piece of wood, dark wood, and it had a carving in bas relief on the front of a Maasai shepherd holding a lamb in his arms. He had a staff in one hand, and his flock was all around him with their little heads looking up at him. I rushed over and picked it up, oohing and eyeing, and I called out to my friends who were quite a ways away, look what I found, it's the Good Shepherd, it's Jesus. This would be perfect for the church. Stupid. Because almost instantly I was surrounded by this swarm of shopkeepers who kept pushing and getting closer and closer to me, and each one of them had something in their hands saying, look, it's Jesus, look, it's Jesus. Paintings, carvings, jewelry, crosses, lots of crosses. Look, miss, Jesus, yes? You want Jesus? I got plenty of Jesus. Come with me. Good price for Jesus. Very good price. Come, lots of Jesus. And over the sea of all their heads, I could see my friends down the aisle laughing hysterically at the mess that I got myself into. But in all the Jesus that was being put in front of my face, there was nothing like that carving. It was the only one I saw the whole day. So I bought it. I think it cost less than $10, which to you and me is nothing, but to somebody in Kenya at that time was a fortune. That happy shop owner wrapped it all up with paper and string, and I tucked it under my arm and wanted to just go on having a normal day at the city market, but the rest of the time we were there, there was this herd of people following me all the way through the market saying things like, Jesus, miss, Jesus, see Jesus, isn't he lovely? Good price, special price for you, miss. I have Jesus right here, plenty of Jesus, cheap prices. And I remember thinking to myself, someday this will get in a sermon. I don't know how, but this story belongs in a sermon. I did bring that panel back in the bottom of a suitcase, and it now hangs in the narthex of the church I served in Connecticut. The Good Shepherd, cradling that lamb in his arms, grasping his staff, his sheep at his feet, looking up for guidance and protection. This comforting and serene and even peaceful image of God or Jesus as a shepherd who's strong and protective of his flock, yet tenderly caring and gentle toward each lamb in his care, is an image that actually appears quite a bit in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. The metaphor is so powerful, I think, because it reflects a longing in the human heart for God to care for us and guide us and comfort and protect us when we face the worst that the world can do. But as powerful and comforting as those images in the 23rd Psalm that we all sung together this morning are, much of the meaning of the imagery is lost on our 21st century ears. And I'm really glad Joe's not here, because my next question is, how many of you have ever seen a shepherd at work or herded sheep yourself? And if Joe was here, she'd be like, yeah, I have. She's not here. So I'm hoping the rest of you can be like, I've never herded sheep. I don't spend time around shepherds. Most of us haven't anyway. And that's why I want to spend some time unpacking that metaphor a little bit for you of God as a shepherd, with help from a man I've never met, whose name is Philip Keller. He worked as a shepherd first in Africa and then Australia, and later in life wrote a book called A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. Later on, he did a version of that book for children, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a quick read, even the adult version, and it's full of just amazing information that I had never heard about sheep and shepherding. And he reflects on scripture and faith in really beautiful ways as well. Now, one of the most important things he will tell you that we need to understand about sheep is that they do not take care of themselves. More than any other kind of livestock, they require endless attention, apparently, and meticulous care from a shepherd. And a good shepherd spares nothing when providing for their welfare. They must continually be making sacrifices for them if those sheep are going to be healthy and flourish. Now, thousands of years ago, when that psalm was read, or Jesus told his stories about being the good shepherd, listeners would have known all that because they were around it every day. But for us, it's easy to miss. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Shepherds at that time in the ancient Near East, at both when the psalm was written and when the gospel were written, were people devoted to the well-being of their flocks. And picture that landscape. It's harsh, it's arid, has rapidly changing weather, and it's extremely challenging, therefore, to find green pastures and calm, unpolluted water. So good shepherds knew exactly where those green pastures were and where those waters were. And they knew it was important to keep moving their flock from place to rotate the pasture, or there would be overgrazing and parasite infections. Something else that's not quite as obvious is that you cannot make sheep lie down. I didn't know this. They will only lie down if 4 things are going on for them. They will absolutely refuse to do it unless they are free from fear. And apparently sheep are very timid and easily spooked. And Mr. Keller said that even a piece of paper blowing in the wind will scatter them like maniacs running in all directions. They have to be free from fear if they're going to lie down. They have to be free of friction amongst their flock. And apparently they spend lots of time fighting. They're like humans. They have pecking orders and butting orders, he called them, B-U-T-T, butting orders. And the hierarchy gets all kinds of upset and aggression going amongst them. And if that's happening, they won't lie down. They have to be free of torment from pests, like flies and gnats and parasites. And they have to be free from hunger. Sheep that haven't been fed on a green pasture will just keep walking and wandering and looking for even one little blade of grass, often at their own peril, and they will not lie down. So for the psalmist to say, the Lord our shepherd makes us lie down, implied in that is, God can make sure we're free from fear and hostility and the things that bug us, and that God satisfies our hunger through care and attention and by being with us. When God's providence and presence allays those fears and hostilities and annoyances that we have, then we are able to trust. He restores my soul. The ancient Hebrew doesn't say that at all. It actually says something like, the shepherd resets my soul to its fully upright position. And I don't know about you, but I think of a stewardess making you bring your seat back up when you're on an airplane, and I'm pretty sure that the person who wrote the song was not thinking about airplanes. The shepherd resets my soul to its fully upright position. People who heard that back in the day would have known right away about this weird habit sheep have. And it sounds funny, but it's actually not, and I'll tell you why in a second. They have something happen to them called being cast down. Do you guys know what that means? I'd sort of heard it with horses, but I did not know this happened to sheep. Apparently, it's very common for them when they do finally lie down. I shouldn't be laughing because it's really sad, but they roll over and then they can't get back up. Their little feet are like in the air, and they're just helpless. They're just lying there. It's called becoming cast. It can be caused by any number of things. If they have too much wool on their body or too much weight, their center of gravity is off, and so up go the legs. If it chooses too soft a spot to lie down in, it gets all rolled over, and then it can't, heave itself back over to get back up again. So apparently shepherds spend a lot of their days and nights walking through the flock and setting them back up in their upright position again. Now, as I said, even though it sounds hilarious, the poor little things, it's really dangerous when it happens to them. The first one's gross, but gases begin to build up in their gut because they're ruminants. And so it cuts off circulation to their legs, and they actually die. If it's cold, they can freeze to death, just lying there with their feet in the air. Or they're completely defenseless. I mean, think about a predator coming along. And there they are, just, right for the picking. So if we consider that the Lord is our shepherd, it's not hard to imagine all the times that God has come along and set us back in our full and upright position. Just like a sheep with too much wool or too much weight, we get overloaded with possessions that we don't need. We lose our center for all kinds of reasons. We get off balance, and we need God to set us back upright again. And just like those sheep that find too soft a place to lie down, we can start making things too cushy for ourselves too, living a life of luxury, and then we get stuck upside down, flailing away, completely disoriented, and it's only God that puts us back on our feet. He leads me in the right paths for his name's sake. Sheep are creatures of habit. Left to their own devices, they will follow exactly the same path out and back forth across a pasture every single day. And pretty soon that path becomes a rut and then a ravine, and they actually can do so much damage that it makes the land useless and beyond repair. They also are not too bright, and they'll stay in one place way too long and eat down the grass to the point where they destroy the roots and it's shot as a pasture. It won't work anymore for them. So they need to be led. They need a shepherd who will move them along, not let them use the same path all the time, keep them moving to new pastures. And I think we do too. We tend to create and stay in ruts, don't we? I do. Deeper and deeper, we carve ourselves into that same old landscape until the walls are so high we can't even see past them. And I think we're like sheep in that we like to stay in familiar comfort zones. We like to stay in places we know, even when they've stopped feeding us the way we need them to. And we need a good shepherd like they do to lead us on, to keep us moving, to go in right paths that don't become ruts. And we don't like being led. We like to think we're in charge. I can decide where I want to walk and where I want to stay. I don't want to be led. And one of the tasks of faith, the life of faith, is learning how to let go of that need for control. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Shepherds back then moved their flocks up the mountains in the spring, because that's where the tender grass was. But the only way to get there was to go through these valleys, these ravines that were really dark and never got sunshine. They had really steep sides, and predators like wolves would hang out and just wait for these sheep to come walking through, and they were easy prey. They could just jump down and get them. The only way that sheep would go and be safe was if a shepherd led them. It's important, I think, to note, and one of the reasons this psalm is so beloved, is it doesn't say, God's going to just keep you from all kinds of danger. Nothing bad will ever happen to you. There's no evil. God's going to make it happy sunshine, rainbows, and bunnies all the time for you. This psalm does not say that if you look at it. This psalm has darkness and evil and death and enemies. And God isn't there to shield us from that reality of life, at least not according to this psalm. God's role is to walk with us right through them and to lead us. The good shepherd's role is to stay with the flock. And we don't fear evil, not because it's not there at all, but because we know that God is with us. Emmanuel means God is with us, leading us through. Seems like a pretty realistic portrait of how hard life can be. And an honest portrayal of who God is. God doesn't wave a magic wand and make evil just disappear. God stays by our side and walks with us through it every step of the way. And from our Christian perspective, the psalm takes an additional meaning, and that is that Jesus walked through the most awful valley of all, the valley of death. So that there is literally nowhere we have to go, no evil we have to face, not even death itself, that Jesus, our shepherd, hasn't already been through and endured for our sake. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Shepherds always have a rod and a staff. The rod is just a straight stick. Sometimes it has a spike on the end, and they use it to beat off predators. But they also use it to count their sheep every night when they come back. They tap them as they go through the gate, and they use it to pull the wool apart to look for injuries or bugs or parasites. Every day they check them. And the staff is that thing with the crook, like Little Bo Peep. That's used when one sheep gets wandering off somewhere where they shouldn't be, and they crook it under the back leg and haul the thing back and get it back with the flock. They also use it to scoop up babies after they're born and bring them up to the head of the mother. So it's a very gentle, loving tool that they use to take care of their flocks. So that whole thing about sparing the rod and spoiling the child doesn't mean what you think it means. We, like sheep, are comforted by our good shepherd's rod and staff. We're known by name, just like that shepherd, tapping them with the rod every night, and we get rescued when we go astray. Think of Jesus' story about the 100 sheep and the one that wandered off. And how the shepherd goes and looks for that one and brings it back to the 99. This one is amazing. You anoint my head with oil. I don't know about you, but when I hear that, I think of anointing kings, right? They put oil, or maybe making the sign of the cross on someone's forehead with oil. That is not what it means for a shepherd. This is a little gross. Keller's chapter on the dreaded nasal fly. The nasal fly. It is just as bad as it sounds. There's a pest common to sheep that lays its eggs inside the nasal membranes. Yuck. And when the larvae hatch, they burrow into the soft tissue. Double yuck. And this tortures the sheep to the point where they start banging their heads against trees and running around in circles to try to get away from what's inside their head. In order to stop that from happening, all through the summer, shepherds pour oil over the heads of the sheep because then the bugs can't lay their eggs. It's protection. And Keller says that when you watch a shepherd doing this, the sheep, you can almost see them relax. It just gives them such peace and comfort, and they feel so much better after this is done that they can rest. So, thank God, you and I are not subject to nasal flies. There is a God. But we do have things that bug us, right? We have things that annoy us and irritate us and drive us to distraction. We have pet peeves and nursed grudges and insults that might be real or might be imagined, and left unattended, they can multiply in epic proportion until we look like those sheep. We're banging our heads against brick walls or running around in a circle expecting something to change even though we're doing the same behavior over and over again. And into that mess comes our good shepherd. And through the presence of the Holy Spirit speaks a word of peace. Be still. Know that I am God. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives. Don't let your hearts be troubled, and neither let them be afraid. God's capacity to soothe our soul in moments like those sounds an awful lot like the moment when the shepherd pours the oil over that poor sheep's head. Relief and calm and comfort. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The original Hebrew is a whole lot stronger than that. It says, goodness and hesed, which we've talked about before, and I'll remind you in a minute. Goodness and hesed shall pursue me, as in chase you down. You can run, but you can't hide kind of pursuit. They won't just accompany you and bless you and hold your hand and skip along. They will run after you and they will find you wherever you are. Notice that it's not the enemies who are pursuing you, right? In this psalm, the enemies have to watch you while you get to eat a banquet. It's goodness and mercy, or hesed, that pursue you all the days of your life. Hesed is so much more than mercy, right? It's that kind of faithful, steadfast love that no matter how badly we screw up, God will not let us go and will not stop loving us. That's hesed, and that's what's pursuing us. And I think that's really the central message. Fear no evil, for God your shepherd is with you. The very creator of the universe is the one who cares for you the way a shepherd cares for his sheep, guiding, protecting, feeding, caring with that tender compassion and love that won't let you go, even when you're walking through the darkest valley you can imagine. Rabbi Harold Kushner, who many of you know is the man who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People, he's a great writer. He wrote a book about the 23rd Psalm, and he said this: there is fear in this world, and evil too. Make no mistake about that. There is vulnerability and uncertainty. God cannot tell us that nothing bad will ever happen to us. But God does tell us that we do not need to fear the future, no matter what it holds. And God assures us that the inevitability of death should never cause us to give up on the holiness of life. Dark days will come, but they will not last forever. Evil will assault us, but we will not be afraid, for God is with us. That's from his book, The Lord is My Shepherd. This is the life to which we're called, you and I, to know security in the face of danger, to know joy in the midst of sorrow, to know love that overwhelms fear, to be led by our good shepherd along paths we would not choose for ourselves always, prodded by one who knows our needs better than we do ourselves, to be blessed so completely and so richly, even when we wouldn't have known to ask for it in the first place, to follow the shepherd and to trust profoundly that in every circumstance we are protected and led by one who stands guard against the worst that the world can do. Our good shepherd serves us, not by changing the rules about life, but leading us into and through painful times and places and assuring us that no pain, no suffering could ever separate us from his love and care. Not even death places us beyond our shepherd's reach. For the one who has been through death and come out the other side on Easter morning will guide us, his flock, safely home. Thanks be to God for that. Amen. Our hymn is number 789.